of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back in. Time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios, 417 on a football Friday, 609-919-9200. Those are the digits that get you on board on the Zach Gelb Show. Big game for the Giants, 5-3, sitting in a good position as they get ready to play the Bengals on Monday night. And now joining us does a tremendous job as a sideline reporter for the Giants radio broadcast, former New York Giant player, and that is the great Howard Cross, who joins us right now. Howard, appreciate a few minutes, and how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well.
Well,
how about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. By the way, last weekend, I loved watching your college football team, Alabama, win against LSU 10-0. That defense, Howard, they're unbelievable.
You know, they've done a great job recruiting. They matched the hatch, kind of, so to speak, as they know that these running quarterbacks are all over the league, so they start recruiting faster, more athletic guys.
And I know they're Alabama and they're expected to be in this spot, but the last few weeks they take down Arkansas, Tennessee, A&M, LSU. Those are all ranked teams. They've played 6 top 25 teams this year. I think we're on a collision course for the college football playoff to see a little Michigan-Alabama, and that would be a special championship game, Howard.
That would be a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing that one.
What was it like for you to play at Alabama?
It's like, I'm trying to think of something. It's like something you dream about when you're going to a school where I don't think pro teams really understand the people who are pro fans who live in major metropolitan areas. If they don't have a college team, you don't get it. When you choose your college, you choose your college. And then that love you have for that moment, it stays with you forever. It's a great thing.
And we all know the tradition Alabama has going back years and years ago with Paul Bear Bryant, and now you have Nick Saban leading Alabama, and every year the expectations to win a national championship. When you were at Alabama, you had 10-3 seasons, 9-3 seasons. Now that would be below the expectation for this group of Alabama. What do you think it would be like if you could play for Nick Saban right now? What do you think that'd be like?
It'd be pretty cool. Nick's very demanding. He gets a lot out of his guys. The guys really respect him. They talk about him for years after. Look at how Landon Collins is actually playing for the Giants. He's an amazing guy getting these guys ready to go.
Now, let's get to Landon Collins as Howard Cross joins us right now. The job that he's done this year, it's been exceptional. One of the leaders and best players on that Giants defense. Last year he had a few bumps in the road. He had that bad game against the Patriots where he dropped the interception. How has this guy been able to change it around? Because he's a remarkable football player, Howard.
The first thing he did, he went out and he lost some weight, get himself together so he could run and change direction even better. After he did that, he started to think about, how to play the ball better and be a better communicator in the secondary. He has done that by leaps and bounds. And his game's totally changed because he's more comfortable with what's about to happen, what's going on. He can, help direct guys and get people in the right position. He's become a real leader.
Playing in New York, it's tough, but it's also very rewarding. The fans, these Northeast fans, they're always on top of you. They'll praise you when they're great, and they'll tell you when you're not playing great. You're a player like a Landon Collins, let's just say, someone that's played in New York. How are you able to block out those distractions earlier on in your career when you're struggling and things are not going right? How do you block that out to get to the point where he is right now in this season?
You have to constantly remember that most of the time that most of the people who are talking about you are commenting. They don't know what's actually happening in the game or on the field. So they just see the end result of a play. They don't know why you got to wherever you are on the field at that moment or, what you were supposed to be doing, what your responsibilities are. So if you get involved in, quote-unquote, a conversation with someone who doesn't know anything about what you're doing, then you're losing already because you're giving him, fuel for the fire. So the best thing to do is always just continuously work on you, try to get you better.
Now let's get to the opponent on Monday night, the ESPN game for the Giants. That's the Bengals. Bengals had some disappointment in the playoffs last year. They were an undisciplined team. This year at 3-4-1. Are you surprised that the Bengals are under 500 at this point of the season?
No, I think, I don't think people realize that every year you get older, so like whatever you were great at that year, take full advantage of it because the following year something's hurting, something's sore, different players on the team. And I think that's what, the Bengals are kind of falling prey to is that every year something different has come up. And every year, guys aren't as fast as they used to be. Guys aren't as whatever as they used to be. Think about it. Adam Jones, which used to be Pac-Man Jones, has changed his name several times, and he went from Odell Beckham is just a player to now it's like, oh, he's a beast. So, like I said, everything continues to change and continues to evolve.
And these next 3 games for the Giants, all 3 of them are winnable. They're games they should win: the Bengals, the Bears, and the Browns. And if you win all 3 of those, you're at 8-3, and that puts you in a nice position to get to the playoffs. But with the Bengals, I think that's the toughest out of the next 3, and that's just because of 2 offensive players for them, and that's Eifert and A.J. Green. What's a defensive approach against Eifert and A.J. Green? Because that's how you know where the quarterback, Andy Dalton, likes to get the ball to.
Well, you know that A.J. Green is probably leading the league in receptions right now and yards from scrimmage, but he only has like 3 touchdowns, which means everyone's kind of dropping back and trying to keep him in front of them to make it hard for him to get into the end zone, and it helps your team out. The problem is that he takes up a lot of chunks of yards when he catches the ball. As far as Eifert goes, if he's healthy, he's one of the most dangerous tight ends in the league. He's as dangerous as Gronkowski, just not as big and imposing, but just as dangerous. So it's going to be interesting because, every defense has the same problem. If you can't stop or slow down the middle of the field, or if the guy on the outside is that dangerous, how do you stop these guys? The good thing is that, unfortunately, the Bengals don't play well in primetime games, especially Monday night games. The Giants don't either, but the Bengals are even worse than the Giants. So this will be a good time to see who can, weed out all their bad moments.
We mentioned A.J. Green, Odell Beckham Jr., top receivers in this league. You also throw in Julio Jones and Antonio Brown. I know physically Odell isn't going up against A.J. Green. He has to beat the defensive backs for the Bengals. But just because you're going up against someone in this game, Giants and Bengals, Odell Beckham, A.J. Green, is there a little bit more personal motivation for Odell this week because of how close these 2 players are in skill ability?
I think that they are close in skill ability, but if he was to go into the game thinking that he's competing against Green, then he's wrong, and he would lose his mind because it's just 2 different type guys. You got a guy that's like over 6'2", 6'3", can run like that. He really takes the top off the defense, and you have another kid who is a phenomenal athlete. If he catches the ball in space, it's hard to get to him to get him down. Taking the top off the defense is just a different type player. That's a player that you got to back up and be worried what's going to happen. You back up on Odell, it's the same thing. He catches the ball in front of you, you may not catch him again. So I don't know how you compete with a guy that you're not playing against.
Howard Cross with us on the Zach Gelb Show. Howard, I was actually very impressed with Odell Beckham Jr. when I met and interviewed him one day over the summer this year. It was a little one-on-one spot, and a lot of what's said I don't think is actually reality about Odell Beckham. But earlier in the year, he acted a little bit childish, and then he started to grow up during this season. How did he move on from those early struggles? Because now it's really starting to click for Odell Beckham.
I think it's more of perception, like you said, in reality. Think about this. He's a great guy, great with kids, great with a lot with his fans. He understands that, people are watching him. He mostly understands that he says that kids are watching him. So he started to, stop doing a lot of things, not because it wasn't fun or he wasn't having a good time, but he didn't want anybody to say, you're a bad influence for my kid. That right there just shows the maturity of who he is and what's going on in his life. I think that he's probably one of the team's leaders. And the thing that I think is most, rewarding for me is to think about this. If Odell was a quarterback and he was doing the exact same thing, people would be like, this guy's a leader. But because he's a receiver and he's getting excited, that makes him a diva. So, again, perception is the reality.
It is a good point. So, Howard, this has been an offense, though, like we've mentioned, their struggles, they've been up and down this year. Eli with 12 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, but they're still at 5-3. I know during the bye week there were those talks of McAdoo possibly relinquishing his play-calling duties. That didn't happen. How do the Giants just play more consistent football moving forward, especially on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, the big thing for them is that their offensive line is kind of undersized. If they can figure out a way just to be a little more consistent blocking, which means like guys like Odell Beckham's going to have to get involved in, chipping up on a safety or getting involved in the run a little bit. If you can get everybody involved to try to make plays more positive, you just can't be in second and 10 or second and 12. It's got to be first and 10, second and 5 or whatever. Short field, stay ahead of the sticks, and that keeps the team offensively moving down the field. If they don't do that, then it becomes, hey, let's tee off on Eli. Let's see how many times we can get to him, how many times we can sack him, or at least get a hit on him. And you're trying to keep yourself out of that situation all the time.
This is not a good run defense for Cincinnati. They're 23rd in the league. Giants' run offense, we know, is not good this year, the bottom of the league at 32. Is there any hope this week for this offense in terms of running the football?
I just don't think so. I don't look at them as a real running team. No offense to the Giants or anything. Think of it just the way you're looking at them, the way you're thinking about them. They give all they got, but they're just not a running team. They're just not. I mean, they've tried to do a lot of different things. They keep switching backs from back to back. I don't know why they're not a running team. They're just not. It doesn't take a lot to run the ball. You just got to get on a guy, stay on a guy. It looks like the backs are a little impatient because they're worried that someone's going to come free. And believe me, when they come free, they're getting tackled in the backfield. They're not getting tackled like at the line of scrimmage, like 2 yards in the backfield. That's how bad sometimes these guys could be up front.
Now, Howard, you look at this offensive line, you're going to be missing Jason Pugh. Pugh going to be out, got out in the second quarter last week, and Brett Jones did a nice job filling in, and you saw Newhouse on that jumbo set. With Pugh being out, what do you expect, Justin Pugh, what do you expect out of this offensive line this week?
It's going to be very interesting because Jones is an undersized lineman, and he's a feisty guy. He's got good feet. He works really hard. So hopefully some of that tenacity will pay off for him. The thing that would probably be of a concern is that Pugh works so closely with Flowers that, Flowers and Pugh they're connected at the hip almost when they're playing. So having someone else in that's different, that doesn't know you the same way, that you're not used to on a day-to-day basis, that could be an interesting moment.
Let me ask you this, because this has been an NFC East that's been a lot better than what people thought it would be. If you would have told me the Giants would be sitting at 5-3 at this point in the season earlier on in the year, I would say they're probably in first place in the division. We know that's not the case with the success of the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, if the season ended today, you have 3 teams in from the NFC East. The Eagles will be on the outside looking in out of the 4 teams in that division. At the end of the day, how many teams do you think the NFC East will send to the playoffs?
I don't know, because you have to think of it this way. You know that out in the West, Seattle's going to be the team that's going to go. Up north, it looks like it could be anybody. It could be Green Bay or it could be Chicago. But the thing that's going to really play out is I think that it's going to be the Lions are going to want to win that division. If they win and then Green Bay gets hot or Chicago keeps in the place, that gives maybe 2 teams there. From the South, no one's really worried about the South, unfortunately. So it just kind of leads to the teams that are winning the most games right now, and those are teams. Dallas is going to probably be there, even though they have a tough schedule going forward. And it depends if Jerry Jones pulls the trigger and puts Romo back in the game or not. How dangerous they actually are. At this rate, they're a good team. They got a good offensive line. Zeke's running the ball. He doesn't get suspended, and Dak's, managing the game. You put Romo in under these circumstances, and then you open the entire field up, and that becomes a big, big problem for the rest of the league.
But we know that Romo is a good quarterback, and sometimes he gets a lot more heat that isn't well-deserved for him because he is a good quarterback. People look back to the fumble in the playoff when he wasn't able to field the kick earlier in his career. Still, though, the way that the Cowboys are playing right now, let's just say if they did go back to Romo, how do you think that would be perceived in the locker room by those Cowboys players?
I think they'd have a hard time with it. I think that they are all talking to each other. They love Romo, but in their mind, like anything else, you got a hot hand. You don't want to lose the hot hand. You want to ride it as long as you can. If you go out and you change something that major, being the quarterback, I think that becomes a major issue in your locker room. Because if there's any stumble, any stress, any rust on Romo, there'll be a mutiny in the locker room. They'll be begging to put the other guy back in.
Well, Howard, stay warm on the sidelines on Monday night. Enjoy the game. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot. Have a great one.
You too. There's Howard Cross joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. And I always like talking to Howard. Had to get a little Alabama fix in there with the former Alabama player, because that was one dominating defensive performance by Alabama, shutting out LSU. And LSU's had a nice turnaround. You've seen this Alabama team, though, this year. They beat 6 top 25 teams. And recently, they just coming off victories against Arkansas, Tennessee, A&M, and LSU. I want to see Michigan, Alabama. You know Alabama's going to be there. Michigan, they could have some trouble in the Big Ten championship game. Remember, they also play Ohio State at the end of the year in the classic Michigan-Ohio State game. So they have a lot of work to do as well. But Michigan, though, I saw them play. I've seen them play a few times this year. I was at that Rutgers game, and I know Rutgers is not a good measuring stick to determine how good Michigan is. That Jabril Peppers, though, is awesome. It would be so much fun to see Harbaugh, Saban, Peppers against that Alabama defense, and then you also have Peppers playing the defensive side as well. The Heisman Trophy this year, the player from Louisville, the quarterback, probably going to win it. You can make a lot of arguments, though. Jackson from Louisville. You can make a lot of arguments, though, for Jabril Peppers. That's how good and dynamic and how explosive that player is. It's going to be real fun to watch and see who wins the Heisman. The quarterback, though, for Alabama, more of a mobile quarterback. I wasn't that impressed, but it just shows how good that system is. You think about it in sports right now. If your expectation is considered a failure if you don't win the championship game, well, that's a pretty good expectation to have year in and year out. It's not like it's just 1 year. Oh, we have the best team this year. We should win the championship. That's how it's been for the last 5, 6, 7 years at Alabama. Like when Ohio State won the national championship that year, that was a disappointment for Alabama. And that's how good and that's how high the standards are for Nick Saban. And Nick Saban was someone that was at LSU, then goes to the NFL with the Miami Dolphins, leaves Miami after saying he's not going to leave, and going to Alabama was the best move for his career. I don't believe he's ever going to go back to the NFL. He's up there in years, in his 60s. He's going to just walk out when the time is right at Alabama, and there's already enough for statue after statue after statue to be built for him. In terms of this, though, Giants and Bengals game that comes your way on Monday night, the key is just to stop Eifert and A.J. Green. If they stop Eifert and A.J. Green, or just contain them, and they can have their plays here and there, as long as they don't make consecutive and multiple big play after big play, the Giants should win this game. And the Giants are in a nice spot at 5-3. Big win just recently against the Philadelphia Eagles. And you have the Bengals, Bears, and Browns coming up. You could win all three. If you called in the show right now, 609-919-9200, and you said, oh, the Giants will win all three of those games, sure, I could see it. Maybe they have a letdown somewhere, and they go 2-1 in these next three. You're still at 7-4. That's in a pretty nice spot. Giants are going to make the playoffs. Unless if they just totally crash and burn down the stretch, they will make the playoffs. That's a football team, and that's what it shows this year in the National Football League. You don't have to be really good to make the playoffs this year. Because I don't look at the Giants and have any apprehension if I'm an opponent. Yeah, defense, it's good, it's okay. Offense has been inconsistent. They don't have a run game. And in the playoffs, you need a run game. There's not that many dominant teams of this year in the entire National Football League. There's one dominant team. That's the Patriots. And they even have some flaws. Their defense is okay. It's middle of the pack. And we'll see how they do after letting go of Jamie Collins. It's a big game against the Seahawks this week. This is a year, though, it wouldn't surprise me if you have a wild card team make it to the Super Bowl in the NFC. It just wouldn't. Because the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC. Giants can beat the Cowboys, so they already have beat the Cowboys. It's going to be interesting to see what team in the NFC goes to the Super Bowl. I believe in the AFC, if it's anyone other than New England, people would be shocked. In the NFC, I don't know how you could definitively say right now who's going to go there. Because even the Falcons, who play the Eagles this weekend, are they that of a fearful football team? Julio Jones, really good player, one of the better receivers in the league. Matt Ryan having an MVP type of season, but their defense isn't good. There's really no team that all around is a really, really, really great team this year. The Patriots may be a great team, but like I said, they have problems on their defense. And that can hurt you in the playoffs. So we'll see who's going to be the great team in January. Because it only takes, really, we've seen okay teams turn out to be great teams in January because they get on a hot run where they win 3-4 games to get and win a Super Bowl. We'll see what team does that. It's going to be a lot of fun. You have a lot of close teams. AFC a little bit more separation from the 6 to the 7 spot right now. From a 6 to the 7, though, in the NFC, it's wide open, and you got to love it. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We just talked to Howard Cross, sideline reporter, former New York Football Giant, is on the Giants radio broadcast. We're going to take a quick break right now, and when we get back, we got to talk a little Philadelphia Eagles. EAGLES Eagles against the Atlanta Falcons. Sunday, 1 o'clock at Lincoln Financial Field, where the Eagles have not lost a game this year. So what we're going to do when we go back, we're going to talk to an Atlanta talk show host, someone that is an Eagles fan, though. And also there's a podcast with Shaq. Yes, Shaquille O'Neal. That is John Kincaid. He joins us next on the Zach Gelb Show. Don't touch that dial, 9:20 a.m., baby. We'll be back after this, or listening worldwide on the web at 920thejersey.com. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Time right now, 4:38.